As a writer and someone who helps writers on their scripts, I know how bloody difficult it can be to work through that constant doubt. So here are 5 tips I usually tell writers whether they're starting their screenwriting journey or just crave a little more advice. Number 1, stop studying Tarantino. For the love of God, please stop doing this. Tarantino is great. He's a great writer, a great filmmaker, awful actor, God bless him, but he tries. But I have heard from so many people that he's one of the first writers they study at film school or in writing classes, and I just don't like it. Because yes, there are a lot of things you can learn from the bloodlusting gremlin man, but one of the main ones is that having a name people know goes a long way. If a new writer tries to write a Tarantino movie, they're not going to get the reception he receives. It is incredibly rare for people to take chances on new writers, let alone if their project is a 2.5-hour epic full of long dialogue scenes with a bloodbath at the end. The Hateful Eight script literally starts with him describing the camera it's shot on. A producer, agent, or your funky little film teacher would never bother continuing reading this script if it didn't have Quentin's name on the front cover. And that's not me saying don't read his scripts, 100% do. There is stuff to learn from. However, don't study them like the Bible. Read newer, debut writers' work. Try and understand why a studio took a chance with them. Read pilots for TV. Read pilot scripts that never got picked up. A Tarantino script should be one script in a list of all your others that you've read. However, if you do want to write long dialogue-heavy pieces, then maybe my next tip will help you, which is number 2, don't ignore the theatre. Stage plays are very different from screenplays. They are a whole other medium and I love them. If you love character and dialogue and you find your work constantly is told it's not quick or action-packed enough, then maybe look into creating a play. Because plays can be anything. You can do anything you like, and sometimes when you strip away the camera and the special effects, you have to work harder and something unique sparks your creativity in a way it never would have before. And I'm not talking about dreams of the West End or Broadway, not yet. To start with, aim for that rustic pub theatre, because what a lot of people forget is it's much easier and cheaper to put on a play than to make an 1.5-hour film. There are loads of pub theatres in London alone that you can approach to put your work on. You'll need a few actors, a director, a lighting and sound person, but there are a lot of freelancers out there desperate for work, and there's a lot of funding you can apply to make this project come to life. And 2 major bonuses of doing this is 1, you get to see your audience's reaction live. You can see when they yawn or look away or start talking to their friend. You know what jokes land or which ones fall on their ass. But 2, you can invite industry people, producers, agents, etc. to come and see your work live. Now it's not just another script on their desk anymore, it's right there in front of them. And look, some of the most successful shows lately have started as plays and the industry knows that. They're all looking for the next Fleabag or Baby Reindeer, so it's worth a shot. Number 3, if you struggle with understanding story arcs, watch Kitchen Nightmares. Bear with me on this one, I promise I have a point. Many writers struggle with story arcs. They've read the books, they've stared at the story wheel for days on end, but when they come to write their scripts, they panic. So they watch a film or TV show to try and see how that follows the structure. However, it's really good and kind of hides its beat-by-beat structure well. Because although structure sounds easy, it can be really hard to implement when you're starting out. So, watch Kitchen Nightmares. Kitchen Nightmares usually follows the story structure to the absolute T. And don't just watch one episode, watch 3 in a row. Binge it until it becomes so obvious you could almost write the script for the next episode. Because they always start with a normal day-to-day life, then the inciting incident of Gordon arriving happens and the goal is established: make the restaurant better. At first they struggle, but they soon adapt to the changes and get what they want, usually a new menu or an updated restaurant, but bang, it comes at a price. Now they're struggling to keep up with the new menu and the kitchen is too busy and it looks like all is lost. However, they push through, complete service, Gordon leaves, and the restaurant returns to its new normal, having changed. And the characters involved are your stereotypical archetypes. You have the hero, which is Gordon, the ruler or the antagonist, which is usually a grumpy owner or chef, and the comic relief usually comes from one of the odd waiters. It's all there. It is story structure at its most basic, which means it's easy to understand, follow, and learn from. And before we move on to my last 2 points, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a like, because that just makes sense. And if you want to see more videos about writing, TV and film analysis, and just general media chit-chats, please do subscribe. It'll really help me out, and it can be your good deed of the day. Number 4, do not ignore your action lines. I'm being very shitty here because I always ignore my action lines and I need to take my own advice. Like a lot of writers, I love dialogue and I find myself putting a lot more time into that than setting the scene. But recently I've been forcing myself to pay more attention to my action lines and my writing has got a lot better, if I do say so myself. The issue is a lot of writers see action lines as just telling the reader what happens on screen, and this makes them feel like instructions. But let's be honest, people hate instructions. I won't play a board game if I can't learn it in 5 minutes, because instructions are boring. Instead, your action lines should be immersive. They should convey the tone and the pace of the piece. They should transport your reader into the world, and most importantly, your action line should be full of your unique voice. A good exercise is to watch the first minute of a film or TV show. Try and write that first minute as a script yourself and then compare it to the real script. see what the writer focused on and what was left up to interpretation for the director. For example, if we take the first shot of The Haunting of Hill House, written by Mike Flanagan, it'd be very easy to write something like this. A Gothic house stands alone in the wilderness, dark, haunting. Leafless trees sway subtly in the wind. That sentence is fine. A perfect example of a first draft you can come back to and edit the hell out of it. And you'll need to, because it's quite mediocre. Now, let's look at how Mike Flanagan conveyed this same image. Dense New England woods, lit only by the moonlight, the leafless branches crossing our frame like skeletal hands. Later, he goes on to describe a sprawling family home in the woods, all by itself, large, striking, and brimming with history. Huge windows, brick and iron, with hints of the Gothic in its architecture. The longer one stares, the more off-kilter the house seems to be. I use this example a lot when working with writers because I think it's perfect. It's full of tone, you know it's a horror from the first sentence, that bit about the skeletal hands is great, and it describes the setting perfectly without boring the reader with pointless details. And most importantly, it doesn't read like an instruction manual. Speaking of, number 5, don't tell the director, instead guide your reader. Sticking with action lines, this is the perfect way to make your screenplay more exciting and immersive to read. And another reason you should be careful what screenplays you learn from. Writer-directors will use camera shots and angles in their work all the time because they can. They're making it. But if you're writing a spec script hoping to show off your writing skills, adding directions for directors or actors just comes across as lazy. And usually, it's a very easy fix. For example, instead of writing close-up, blood-stained boots stomp across loose gravel. Instead, just write blood-stained boots stomp across loose gravel. Just cut the instruction. That sentence reads like a close-up already. You've stripped back all the other details and focused your reader in on the boots, so that's what they're picturing. And most importantly, you haven't taken your readers out of the story by using technical script jargon. Comment below some of your favourite screenplays to study from TV, film, or plays, and in the meantime, I'll leave you with this.